Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me here for another Facebook Live. I'm really excited to talk about today's topic because it's one of my favorite holidays coming up next week. It's Thanksgiving, the holiday that is all about getting together with family, whether that's good or bad for you. That opinion varies dramatically, and eating lots of delicious food. And I really love the Thanksgiving food. So I, for one, am definitely looking forward to next Thursday. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Alexis Conason. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm in private practice here in New York City, and I am also the founder of the Anti-Diet Plan. The Anti-Diet Plan is a 6-week mindfulness-based program which helps people get out of cycles of chronic dieting and feeling like you're on the wagon and then falling off the wagon, and just kind of help us develop a more peaceful and harmonious relationship with food and our body. So if you're interested in learning more about that program, the next group is going to be starting in January, and for now you can sign up for my free 30-day intro course, and that'll give you a little taste of what the program is about. And you can also sign up for my wait list to be notified and receive some early discounts on when that course is going to be starting in January. So anyways, I am so happy to be here today to talk about Thanksgiving. And I've been doing a lot of interviews recently because Thanksgiving is the time that like all the media outlets kind of say, oh my gosh, let's try to find a psychologist and talk about food. So I've been getting a lot of phone calls recently from journalists wanting to hear about like what are the mindful eating tips to manage the holidays. And a lot of the times, you know, I have the sense that they're really looking for basically diet tips. They're looking for how do we eat less on Thanksgiving? What's the, you know, how do we replace making the, you know, how do we replace the pumpkin pie with eating something that's less fattening or less caloric or whatever, you know. And obviously that's not the kind of advice that I give, because I think that's going to really lead us down the rabbit hole. So my number one piece of advice for how to have a really pleasurable and enjoyable Thanksgiving is to try to get out of the feast or famine mentality. So Thanksgiving's kind of a funny holiday. We tend to, you know, be told, we're given all these messages that we should be restricting our food intake, that we shouldn't be eating what we want, that we should be dieting, you know, 364 days a year. And then on Thanksgiving, we get the message that it's like a free-for-all. You know, now here's your chance, your one day to eat whatever you want, as much as you want. It's really sanctioned, kind of culturally sanctioned to overeat. And then we're back to the restriction the next day. You know, turn on the TV or any of the morning news channels the Friday after Thanksgiving, and you're going to see tons of tips on how to run off that turkey and how many sit-ups you have to do to work off that piece of pumpkin pie, and all kinds of things that really promote disordered ways of eating and disordered ways of thinking, and just make us feel kind of obsessed with food and make us feel like there's something wrong with our body and that we did something shameful by having eaten the day before. So this is obviously, in my opinion, a really destructive way of thinking, and it's going to most likely lead to us eating in ways that don't feel good for our body on Thanksgiving, and then having a lot of guilt and shame about it afterwards. And it can even lead us into more prolonged cycles of disordered eating where we try to restrict, you know, the day after Thanksgiving, and then that can really set us up for a binge later in the day or the next day or sometime soon. So it brings us into that on the wagon, off the wagon cycle, which is really problematic. And in addition to making us feel really miserable and being a trigger for binge eating disorder, it just doesn't work. Like, it's not effective. We're not going to obtain any of the things that you want to obtain by doing that kind of you know, vacillation between restriction and overeating or feeling out of control with our eating. So what I want to emphasize today is that I think that one of the reasons that we tend to have so much hype around Thanksgiving, and like the journalists come out of the woodworks wanting to get all these tips on how do we manage our eating on this one day, is because we are so messed up about our eating every other day of the year. So it sends us into a panic, this idea that we can eat whatever we want on this one day. And a lot of us feel really disoriented. It can take away from enjoyment of the holiday, and it could put a really undue focus on the food rather than spending time with friends and family. Now, of course, that can bring in a whole host of challenges in its own right, the idea of spending the holidays with friends and family, but that's going to be a different topic. But so I want to say that I think the number one thing that we can do to try to have a enjoyable and delicious Thanksgiving and not feel out of control around food and not feel like so bad about our eating is to remember that we don't need to restrict the other 364 days of the year. This isn't our only chance to eat these foods. And when we can embrace that and really remember that, like, if we want sweet potato casserole on the Friday after Thanksgiving, or if we want it on Christmas, or if we want it in July, that is available to us. This isn't our one and only chance to eat pumpkin pie. And I think that when we can really not only tell ourselves that, but truly believe it, it lessens some of the pressure on that day to have to eat as much as we can in that moment. Because of course, when we think that Thanksgiving is our only chance to get to eat all of these foods, we feel really pressured to have to eat as much as we can, because it's like, we love these foods are enjoyable, they're delicious, and when are we ever going to be able to have them again? So it can really put us into kind of a panic. And it brings up that sense of scarcity around food, which again triggers that binge, restriction binge cycle. So what I recommend is to really not only tell yourself, but to believe, to trust that all of these foods that you're eating on Thanksgiving really are available every other day of the year. You can make them, you can usually find some place to buy them. You can make extra on Thanksgiving, and you can freeze them and defrost that piece of whatever it is that you really enjoy, your favorite Thanksgiving sides, whether it's the pecan pie or the stuffing, you can freeze all this stuff and defrost it like in May if you want a piece. And I definitely encourage people to take leftovers if you're in that kind of environment where you're invited to take leftovers, because that is a way of truly telling your body and kind of showing yourself that you can have this. This isn't your only chance to have this food. You can take more of it. You can have more throughout the week. You can freeze it. There's lots of different options. But I think that whatever it takes for you to really trust that this is not the one and only chance to eat these foods, and to try, instead of trying to restrict and restrain our eating and like listening to all of the tips that are out there in the media about telling us to there's just the most idiotic things that I hear, like fill up on the salad at Thanksgiving, or chew your food 50 times so that you won't eat as much, or put salt all over your food so you don't eat as much, whatever. They're truly idiotic. And while there's so much focus on how to eat less on Thanksgiving, I think that really the focus needs to be on how to eat more the rest of the year, how to lessen our restrictions and welcome all foods into our lives every single day of the year, so that Thanksgiving doesn't feel like such a free-for-all. It's just another day in the year that we can eat whatever we want. So that is my number one tip to have a enjoyable and delicious Thanksgiving, is that it's not just about Thanksgiving, but it's about looking at what's going on with your eating every other day of the year, and to really trust that this is not your one and only chance. And to prove that to yourself, whether it's by making those foods again if you want them on another time of the year, it's freezing it, or whatever, whatever it takes. But I think it's really important that we work to lessen our restrictions, and that's going to help us feel much more in control of our eating on Thanksgiving. And if you do happen to overeat on Thanksgiving, which is totally normal, everybody overeats sometimes, please remember to be compassionate to yourself and just try to treat yourself with as much kindness and love as you possibly can. That is going to be the #1 antidote to the shame and guilt and getting into that binge restrict cycle is compassion, 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 compassion. If even if you don't find yourself overeating, Thanksgiving can be a very difficult day for a lot of people, whether you're struggling with the loss of a loved one or difficult family relationships, or perhaps not having family or not having somewhere to go on Thanksgiving. Please, whatever you do, try to remember to maintain a compassionate stance. Try to approach yourself with love and respect and value yourself as the amazing, wonderful person that you are. And, if we try to hold on to that stance of self-love and self-compassion, I think we're always going to be moving in a good place. So with that, I'm going to let you guys know I'm not going to be here next week. We're not going to have a Facebook Live, but I'll be here the week after Thanksgiving, and I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more about how to manage how to eat mindfully around the holidays, and how to manage all of the mixed messages that we get about, eat more, eat less, restriction, we're just entering a really difficult time culturally in our diet culture, in our diet-focused culture. It's a difficult time around the holidays. So I'm going to be here each week, except for next week, to offer support and some tips and help you all through the holiday season so that we can get through to January in a way that is embracing of ourselves and loving and caring and enjoyable, and that we really have a good time. It can also be a very fun, special time of the year. So I hope you will join me more for Facebook Lives over the next few weeks as we approach the holidays, because as I said, this is a time that we really could use the extra support and the community. And if you have any questions, I also want to mention that I'm going to be doing a webinar tomorrow in collaboration with a company called Happify, which is a software program, an app that works to try to help people increase happiness in their lives. And I collaborated with them last year to create a mindful eating track that you can buy on their app. I don't directly profit from that anymore, so but I will recommend the app. I think it's excellent. And if you are interested in learning more, I'm going to be answering all of your questions about mindful eating tomorrow at, I believe it's at noon. I will post it on my Facebook page, the exact information as well as the link to register for the webinar. We usually get a pretty good turnout. I think last time we had over 400 or 500 people join us for the webinar, and I think we're going to get some really great questions. So if you have your questions, please feel free to join us tomorrow and ask your questions, or just tune in and hear what other people have to say and what other people want to know about mindful eating. I think that can be a really interesting experience in and of itself. So I hope you'll join me for that. I'll post the information on my page. And if you have any questions or anything you want to get in touch about, you can feel free to find me on social media. I'm here on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at The Anti-Diet Plan. I am on Twitter at Psy.D. And you can also email me, info@drconneson.com. If you haven't checked out my free 30-day The Anti-Diet Plan program, please sign up at my website, www.drconneson.com. And the next program of the 6-week mindful eating course is going to be starting in January, just in time for all of those New Year's resolutions. I'm really hoping that people are going to resolve not to diet this year and to really work on trying to heal their relationship with food and body. And I hope my program will help you do that. So thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in 2 weeks. Take care and happy Thanksgiving.